I think the big top line from Tuesday's election results is that it was a good night for Democrats, a bad night for Republicans. Now, where the blame's going is different depending on what party you're in. Democrats are saying this is a referendum on President Trump. President Trump saying, slow your roll a little bit. I wasn't even on the ballot, and this has to do with the shutdown. So where or who do you think is responsible for what we saw on Tuesday night?
Yeah, I mean, look, I always think anytime you're trying to put the blame on one person or thing 100% in an election that's as varied as New Jersey, Virginia, New York City mayor, California, right? It's a little bit hard. I do think if you ask me who would I blame the most, I would blame Donald Trump. I think that he is not popular nationwide, 40, 41, 42% of the vote in terms of approval. And he's really not popular in New York City and California, slightly more popular in New Jersey and Virginia, but not all that much. And I would say, especially in New Jersey and Virginia in those governor's races, Abigail Spanberger and Mikey Sherrill, both who won by double digits, ran expressly against Donald Trump and sought to tie their opponent to Donald Trump. I think Donald Trump got elected in 2024 because people, even if they didn't love him, thought he would do a better job on lowering prices, housing prices, car prices, grocery prices, than Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. And I don't think that people believe he's done so. And I think that, what happened on Tuesday is a reflection of that.
I want to talk about the Trump factor in a little bit, but before I do, I feel like this is the happiest I've seen the Democratic Party in a year. It seemed like they have some wind in their sails now, but I mean, these wins didn't exactly defy the polls. Nothing was a shocker on Tuesday night. And a Democrat winning in New York City isn't exactly mind-blowing. I know that the Democrat himself was. However, wins in California for a Democrat measure, not mind-blowing. Virginia and New Jersey, a little bit more. Not even shocking there either because they're blue-leaning states. Do you think the enthusiasm from Democrats, the excitement, and saying this is such a good night for Democrats, do you think that celebration is a bit overblown?
I think it's probably a little premature, a little overblown, and totally understandable from Democrats' perspective, which is, look, 2024, I think it is hard to overstate how devastating that election was for them. They thought they were going to win, especially after they subbed out Joe Biden for Kamala Harris, and they did not win. They were shut out of power at the White House, at the Senate, at the House level, at the governor's level, at the state legislative level. They really didn't have much to latch onto. So when you are in a position like that, you will take any wins, even though Republicans rightly point out the vast majority of the big wins on Tuesday were in places you would expect a Democrat to win. You'll take any wins. Do I think it bodes well for them in 2026? I do. I think what you see is midterm elections tend to be a referendum on the party in power. That party remains Republicans from the White House to the House to the Senate. The Democratic base is very energized, as we saw on Tuesday. The Republican base, less so. Do I think it solves Democrats' brand problems writ large heading into the next presidential election? It does not. And in fact, it reinforced it in some ways. You have Zoran Mamdani, a figure of the left, right? Democratic socialist, win in New York, beating the establishment Democrat, Andrew Cuomo. And then you have two very moderate women Democrats get elected governor in New York and, New Jersey and Virginia. That's the dynamic that is still at work in the party. It did not get solved on Tuesday. It's not going to get solved even if Democrats have a great night, on November 3rd, 2026. It will get solved in the Democratic primary presidential process that starts in 2027.
And I think both sides of the Democratic Party really emerged and was visible on Tuesday night. With Mamdani's win in New York, he's definitely the more progressive part of the party. Then you see Spanberger's win, Sherrill's win in Virginia and New Jersey, and they are more moderate Democrats. I'm curious, what do you think the winning message is for the party? Because Mamdani, he didn't really focus on Trump and MAGA too much in his campaign. He was laser focused on affordability. On the other hand, Sherrill and Spanberger, they did focus on affordability, but they also spent a good part of their campaigns saying we're not Trump and saying that the Republican who was running against them was tied to President Trump. So what's the winning message for Democrats, do you think, in 2026? Affordability or being against Trump?
I think it's the former. I think it's the former. And yes, you're right that Mikey Sherrill and Spanberger did talk about Trump, but they also talked about affordability, right? I think they talked about Trump in the context of this guy said he was going to fix everything and make you be able to afford everything, and you can't. To me, the through line between New York, New Jersey, and Virginia is that affordability message. And it can encompass so much, right? It can, if you're Zohran Mamdani, it can be about that the rents are too high, right? That people can't live in New York City anymore. If you're Abigail Spanberger or Mikey Sherrill, it can be grocery prices are too high, or buying a home is too high, or healthcare costs are too high. So it can really fit into a lot of things. I don't think it has to be an either or. I think the mistake that Democrats make over and over again is to assume that swing voters hate Donald Trump as much as they do. They don't. Swing voters may not love Donald Trump, but they don't hate him. They care much more about which party and which candidate is going to help me in my lived reality, right? And that's why I think you have to put affordability first. That's the key. You can talk about Trump in the context of that, but you can't talk about, well, Trump's terrible, and then affordability. I saw a quote from Mikey Sherrill that I'm paraphrasing, but she basically said, like, look, abortion is an important issue, but if people feel like they can't make ends meet, me talking about abortion doesn't meet them where they are, right? Elections are about meeting voters where they are, not where you think they should be or where you want them to be.